Chapter 660. What the F***? Jiang Hai shouted in surprise as he grabbed the upper left handle. To be honest, even in winter the desert was not a fun place. The wind would blow sand all over one's face, and the temperature was particularly hot. Therefore, as soon as they entered the desert, they closed the windows. It was somewhat suffocating, but fortunately, there was air conditioning and ventilation, which was not bad. But another point was that there was no road in the desert. If they wanted to walk, they had to pass through the sand dunes. To be honest, it was too much of a scam. The degree of shaking was actually no less than riding a roller coaster, and the most important thing was that this thing did not give them any sense of security. Jiang Hai had just crashed into a tree a few days ago, and now he felt that the car would flip over at any time. It was really too much of a scam. Don't worry, there's no need to make a fuss. This is actually just an appetizer. Hearing Jiang Hai's shouting, Du Feimin couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, compared to Jiang Hai's terrain, he was already used to it and sat very steadily. After driving for about half an hour, the car slowly stopped. As soon as the car stopped, Jiang Hai directly pushed open the door and walked out. He lay on the ground and panted heavily. The road here was too much of a scam. Was this a joke? How could it be so fierce? Looking at Jiang Hai lying on the ground, Du Feimin also walked out and said with a smile, "Hey, you're really strange. I thought I wouldn't be able to stand on the ground alive, but where is your ranch? Why can't I see it?" After lying on the ground for about 2 minutes, Jiang Hai recovered, but after standing up and looking around, he found that he was still surrounded by a desert. Is Du Feimin playing with me? What the hell is this? Where's the ranch? The ranch is in the middle of the desert. In fact, to be honest, we are still at the edge of the desert. There are still 2 hours of driving. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Du Feimin said with a smile. Hearing what he said, Jiang Hai's face turned dark. 2 hours? Why did you stop the car now? Although his face was particularly dark, Jiang Hai still had to ask. What kind of method was this? We're stopping now to let the air out of the tires. Actually, we haven't entered the desert yet. We still have to walk on the road ahead. It's much more interesting than the front. If the air in the tires is too full, it will be difficult to maintain balance. You have to let some air out to make the tires softer so that it's easier to move forward. Hearing Jiang Hai's doubts, Du Feimin also shared some knowledge with him. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai's face dripped with cold sweat. He had no other thoughts. Are you kidding me? This is just an appetizer? The real main course was yet to come. Wow, you're really generous. Looking at the endless ranch in front of him, Jiang Hai was honestly shocked. Worthy of the legendary Dubai royal family, they were indeed more generous than Jiang Hai. This place was originally a small oasis, with a very rich underground water source. Since I came back from your place, I used the power of the whole country to expand this oasis. The trees outside are the most effective in blocking the wind and sand. The outermost layer is a palm tree, below it is a date palm tree, and the inner layer is a date palm tree. The fruit of this kind of tree tastes pretty good. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Du Feimin also introduced the oasis. The land we're stepping on is all flown in from the most fertile Australia. It's covered with the sea mud of the Persian Gulf, and the grass planted on it is emperor bamboo grass. I can say that everything is prepared according to the best pasture, but the most important thing is still your grass. Looking at Jiang Hai, Du Feimin said while walking. It was obvious that he really valued this project. Jiang Hai also glanced at the so-called emperor bamboo grass. There was no emperor bamboo grass in Jiang Hai's manor, but it did not prevent him from hearing about this grass. Emperor bamboo grass, known as the royal family of the pasture, was the strongest pasture. It was a cross between elephant grass and North American wolf's tail grass. In the ranch, this grass was recognized as the best pasture in the world. It grew quickly, was rich in nutrients, and had good effects. However, Jiang Hai's manor did not have it, because this grass was not suitable for Winthrop. The living habits of this kind of pasture were more deceptive. It was only suitable for tropical and subtropical planting. The sun required more than 1,000 hours of sunshine per year. The altitude range was okay, and it could be planted at 200,1500 meters. The annual average temperature was above 15 degrees, and the precipitation was above 1,000 millimeters. However, this could be done by watering. The annual frost-free period was about 250 days. This alone was impossible for Jiang Hai's manor. The soil had to be very fertile, but it also had to be very fertile sandy soil. If all the above requirements were met, about 25 stalks could be distributed in a year. In fact, to be honest, many families had made a fortune by raising this grass. For example, Du Feimin's ranch was basically planted with this grass. It had to be admitted that this was the style of a nouveau riche. Of course, it was impossible to only plant one type of grass in a ranch, just like how people could not only eat one type of vegetable. This type of grass was the main pasture. In addition, there were many other types of pasture such as rye grass, sweet elephant grass, corn grass, alfalfa grass, and so on. In terms of grass alone, the pasture in Du Feimin's ranch was probably much better than the pasture in Jiang Hai's manor. Robbins Garcia and the others were not well-bred cowboys, so they did not know much about these things, let alone teach Jiang Hai. Therefore, after walking around here, Jiang Hai did not have much to say. Your place is very good. I don't have any opinions. When are you going to come to my place to gather grass? After looking around and confirming that there was no room for him to say anything, Jiang Hai said to Du Feimin, because he really did not know what to say. As soon as possible. When is it convenient for you? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Du Feimin smiled. In fact, he invited Jiang Hai here mainly to let Jiang Hai see if his ranch and Jiang Hai's grass were compatible. If there was any conflict, it would be troublesome. In fact, he was thinking too much. Jiang Hai's grass was compatible with everything. If a person ate it, there would only be benefits, not to mention cows. Then let's do it at the beginning of March. At that time, the snow in Winthrop will melt, and it will be easier to gather grass. After I come to your place, I will have to go back to Wuxia. It may take more than a month before I go back. At the beginning of March, I will be back. At that time, you can come to gather grass. He calculated the time in his heart. The beginning of March was a good time. At that time, the grass in his manor that was tied up but not eaten by the cows could be sold to Du Feimin. At that time he should also start fishing. Thinking about it, it was only during this period that he was relatively free. After he started fishing and the beginning of spring, he might be busy for a period of time again. I see. No problem. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Du Feimin thought for a moment. This was acceptable. It would only take more than a month. He could try it himself. Without Jiang Hai's grass, he could raise cows very well. Your Highness Du Feimin? Just as Jiang Hai and Du Feimin were about to settle this matter, a voice suddenly came from afar. Hearing this voice, Jiang Hai and Du Feimin both looked over. They only saw that at this time in the distance, a yellow man was being stopped by Du Feimin's bodyguard, and he was constantly shouting towards Du Feimin. Seeing this person, Du Feimin's face smiled, then he waved to the bodyguard. The bodyguard saw that his master had spoken, so he let go of his hand, allowing the yellow man to quickly run over. Chapter 661. Your Highness. After the middle-aged man ran over, he glanced at Jiang Hai in front of him, but he did not greet him. Instead, Jiang Hai felt a trace of hostility from him, which made Jiang Hai somewhat puzzled. It seemed that he did not know this yellow-skinned man. After the yellow-skinned man glanced at Jiang Hai, he respectfully looked at Du Feimin, and said with a serious face while stroking his chest, "Oh, Mr. Akita, may I know why you are looking for me?" Looking at the yellow-skinned man in front of him, Du Feimin said with a smile. Hearing him call this person's name, Jiang Hai also knew that this guy should be a Japanese. No wonder Jiang Hai felt a little unhappy when he saw him, but now that he was in Du Feimin's territory, Jiang Hai could not say much. After all, Du Feimin was different from him. He was the royal family of Dubai. Although he had some personal relations with him, it was impossible for him to overlook public affairs for personal reasons. Your Highness is too polite, just call me Akita. I came here because I heard that His Highness Du Feimin invited a guest, so I came to have a look and discuss the situation of cattle raising. The guy called Akita said while looking at Jiang Hai. From his eyes, it was not difficult for Jiang Hai to see that he was still very hostile to him, and the source of this hostility might be this ranch. I'm Akita Mango, the director of the Foreign Trade Bureau of Japan's Akita Corporation. I'm also one of the designers and builders of this ranch. I heard that Mr. Jiang is a kindred spirit, so I'd like to come and ask for advice. After saying that, Akita did not care about Du Feimin's ugly face and looked at Jiang Hai with a serious face. At the same time he bowed to Jiang Hai, which was also the etiquette of Japan. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai touched his nose. This guy must be crazy. Forget about asking for advice because I don't know anything about ranching. I don't know anything about farming from management to breeding. Well, maybe Jiang Hai didn't have any specialization. Other than spiritual energy, he didn't have any other specialties. Therefore, instead of being ridiculed for a while, it was better to tell the truth first. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, not only was Akita Makoto stunned for a moment, but even Du Feimin was stunned for a moment. Although Akita Makoto seemed to be brainless, his IQ was not low. Although Akita Corporation was not as powerful as Yasui or Mitsubishi in Japan, Akita Corporation was not as flashy in Japan. But in fact, this conglomerate was quite a capital group. They were Japan's #1 livestock export company. Otherwise, they would not be able to get in touch with Du Feynman. Japan's livestock industry was very famous around the world. In the beginning, Japan's animal husbandry wasn't very famous. After all, Japan's territory was only so small. Other than the places where people lived, the food grown on the island was really only enough to prevent the people from starving to death. Later, Japan changed its policy. They no longer grew a large amount of food, vegetables, and fruits in Japan. They changed to high-end sales. They only raised the best cattle and planted the best rice. They used the price difference to gain a foothold in the international farmers' market. As for the food that ordinary people ate, it was all imported from Wuxia. This was because imported from Wuxia was much cheaper than in their own country. In fact, not only Japan but South Korea was also the same. At this time, most of the vegetables and fruits in Japan and South Korea were imported from Huaxia's Lu province. Of course, their domestic requirements were very high. They couldn't be too big, too small, or ugly. Therefore, the price was much more expensive than those sold in China. Many people specialized in this business. Akita Corporation was one of the leaders in Japan's livestock industry. Akita Makoto could be considered as the family head of Akita Corporation. However, it was not a very important family head. Although his surname was Akita, he did not have shares or inheritance rights. This time he was the one who proposed to be on good terms with Du Feynman. Even those Wagyu cattle were brought over by him. He already knew about the relationship between Du Feynman and Jiang Hai. But he believed that he would definitely be more favored by Du Feynman than Jiang Hai, this lucky upstart. After all, he was a professional. In his opinion, Jiang Hai was just a lucky upstart, nothing more. He didn't know what kind of black technology he used, or what kind of shameless technology. Jiang Hai's cattle were sold at a high price, and even beat a Japanese animal husbandry company. But Akita was not the same as the company he defeated. They were the best company in Japan. Whether it was the company or the individual, he did not think that he would lose to Jiang Hai. So don't look at how he came here so rashly. In fact, he had thought it through carefully. He wanted to defeat Jiang Hai at his proudest moment, expose the fact that he was a liar, and then make friends with Du Feynman. This way, not only would his company benefit but his country would also benefit. He could even become a hero. When he thought of this, his eyes couldn't help but turn red. But what he didn't expect was that Jiang Hai would actually admit it. He wanted to compete with Jiang Hai to prove that Jiang Hai was a liar. But now, Jiang Hai directly said that he didn't know anything about business or farming. He was a liar, a dignified liar. This really made him speechless. You don't know anything about farming. What are you doing here? Seeing that Jiang Hai didn't play by the rules, Akita Masao almost couldn't breathe. He coughed, looked at Jiang Hai, and said with a serious face, "I'm here to play. Du Feynman is my friend." Although because of their relationship with Jiang Hai, some of the photos were deleted. However, because of their beautiful appearance and the perfect scenery at Jiang Hai's place, these photos still attracted the attention of many otakus on Huaxia's internet. At this time, Feng Yunshan was titled as the otaku's big sister, and Ai Xiaoxi was fully deserving of the title as the otaku's goddess. The Weibo account opened by the two of them used to only have a few thousand zombie fans, all of which were bought by the company. But now, all of them have become millions. Especially in the imperial capital, they are still quite famous. Some rich people even took the initiative to go to their company to discuss business. It was inevitable that they would want to meet the two of them. But at this time, the company's manager would say that the company behind the two of them is the Qi Group. Some of these people could be provoked, but most of them could not be provoked. However, even if they could be provoked, they would not be able to do so. However, even if they can, they will definitely not have any conflict with the Qi Group because of these two women. One must know that the Qi Group is now a huge monster. These two people didn't go in and wait because they were afraid that they would be recognized after going in. That would be troublesome. Are you stupid? If you are afraid of being recognized, then go in and wait in the car. Hearing the explanation of the two women, Jiang Hai really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because he usually didn't go to the domestic internet, he really didn't know that they were popular. Aren't we hoping that you will see us when you come out? Really, you have no conscience. Glancing at Jiang Hai, Feng Yunshan patted Jiang Hai's arm again. This guy is too unromantic. Hearing Feng Yunshan's words, Jiang Hai also smiled and touched his nose. There is a saying that it is the hardest to enjoy a beauty's grace. In the past, Jiang Hai was often impulsive, and then he would do that? But now it seems that it is indeed his own women who seem to have too many. Let's not talk about it. Let's go home first. Hugging the cold Feng Yunshan and Ai Xiaoxi, Jiang Hai said with a smile. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the few people here had no opinion. They got into a business car that Feng Yunshan specially borrowed, and the group drove to Feng Yunshan's house. Feng Yunshan's house was a two-bedroom house, so it was divided into 2 rooms to sleep. Originally, Delina and Marian lived in Ai Xiaoxi's room. Today, Azalina was added. As for Jiang Hai, after dinner, he took a shower and went into Feng Yunshan's room. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Tonight, the 3 of them would probably have to spend some time together. The next day, Jiang Hai and the others had a good rest in this house. By the way, Jiang Hai also distributed the things he bought to everyone. Those famous luxury goods as well as gold jewelry. However, when the fishing season started next month, his assets should double again. According to his estimation, it shouldn't be a problem for him to double. The day before yesterday was the day your aunt moved her grave, so I definitely had to come back. Glancing at her, Jiang Hai said calmly. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Hirue was at a loss for words, but still wore a disdainful expression on her face. In fact, these people all knew that Jiang Hai had moved his parents' graves, and He Xia was the only one who went there in the end. In their eyes, they didn't need this cousin of theirs. Since he wasn't needed, there was no need for him to attend such a thing and pay for it. Therefore, everyone pretended that they didn't know about it, but they couldn't say it out loud. Once Jiang Hai said it, they directly stopped talking. Of course, Jiang Hai didn't want to talk to her either. What was there to talk about? Cousin, right? Nice to meet you. My name is Dong Jian and I'm Rui's boyfriend. May I know where you work? This should be sister-in-law, right? Feeling that she was suppressed by Jiang Hai, Hirue felt a little embarrassed, so she gently nudged her boyfriend who was staring at Chili with the tip of her elbow and asked him to speak. Her boyfriend reacted quickly and immediately said with a smile. Oh, I raise cattle and this is your sister-in-law. Looking at Dong Jian who came over, Jiang Hai didn't even look at him and said while drinking tea. Looking at Jiang Hai's attitude, Dong Jian frowned. This Jiang Hai is a little arrogant. But he didn't stop there. Didn't Jiang Hai say that he was a cattle breeder? Raising cattle? Raising cattle? What can he do? Hey, raising cattle to make money now? I heard that raising cattle can at most earn 800 to 1,000 renminbi per cow, and you still have to work hard for more than a year. It's not worth it. Why don't you come to my family's company for an interview? You can start from the bottom. You can get a guaranteed salary of 3,000 renminbi per month, and the commission will be calculated separately. If you do well, you will be my family and I can promote you to a manager. Dong Jian looked at Jiang Hai and said to Jiang Hai. To him, what he said was very generous. The cost of living in Bing City was not high, and a new graduate can get 3,000 renminbi per month with commission. At Jiang Hai's age, of course, it was not the same as a new graduate. But the starting salary of 3,000 renminbi per month with commission was still very attractive to some office workers. If the market was not good, they could at least get 5,000 to 6,000 renminbi per month. If they had good connections, they could even get 10,000 renminbi per month. Dear, he doesn't want you to raise cattle and he wants you to work. Eeh. What a joke. When Jiang Hai heard what Dong Jian said, he didn't know what to say. If it was a year ago, this might be a good job for him. But now... Chili laughed when she heard what Dong Jian said. Chapter 674. Why is the price so low? Before Jiang Hai could say anything, Edward Anderson couldn't help but walk down the boat and ask Michelson Green. He was very unwilling to accept this price. He originally thought that this boat of fish could be sold for at least $500,000. But if he sold it at this price, it would be at least $50,000 less, which was something he was extremely unwilling to accept. I don't have a choice. Michelson shrugged helplessly when he heard Edward Anderson's words. You're also an old fisherman. It's impossible that you don't know. We didn't set this price. I'm also following the price in New York. This is the price set by those bastards on Wall Street. If you think it's low, then I think it's low too. Looking at Edward Anderson, Michelson Green took out a pack of cigarettes and lit one up. In the United States there was no fixed price. In fact, there was no fixed price in China. But in China, the government would regulate these things, which was much better than in the United States. Whenever the price of something increased, such as some necessities like rice, It would only increase within a certain range. Therefore, those who raised the price were all non-necessities such as garlic, green onions, coriander, and so on. With these years of supervision, the domestic price growth was still very reliable. This was also the best thing about the country. But in the United States, there was no such regulation. In the United States, all prices were set by those capitalists. It was the big bosses on Wall Street who were in charge of setting the price of vegetables, grains, meat, and even forage. The price was whatever they said. For example, if these guys didn't like the special 5A grade beef, they would say that from today onwards, the price of 5A grade beef would be reduced to $1 per kilogram. Then the price would really be reduced to $1 per kilogram. Of course, $1 per kilogram could only be bought after one bought it. Even if the price was reduced to this level, the people who had 5A grade beef such as Jianghai wouldn't sell it to Wuxia or Europe. It was the Americans who didn't want to eat it. It had nothing to do with them. Of course, they couldn't drop the price so ridiculously. It was possible to raise or lower the price by $1, but it was impossible for the price to drop to $1. Jiang Hai's manor basically didn't deal with these people because he didn't sell ordinary beef, his wine was brewed by himself, and his grass didn't need to be imported, so whether these people set the price or not had nothing to do with Jiang Hai. Jiang Hai was taking the high-end route, and these people could not restrict him. However, the current price of fish made Jiang Hai a little depressed. Those damn vampires. Boss, are they for sale? Upon hearing Mickelson Green's words, Edward Anderson hesitated for a moment before asking Jiang Hai,